Ezra has this very strange conversation out with Thomas. He quotes his big question, which I think actually really encapsulates a big problem with the way most Beltway reporters and, frankly, Dem strategists think about politics, is, well, yeah, where do we draw the line? What's totally unacceptable to us? And that's not really a relevant question to anything, frankly. Like, okay, yeah, there is obviously some behavior that is unacceptable, but the way that Ezra Klein is talking about it is essentially what behavior should make us exile someone from society. And yeah, I think if that's your framing, you're going to end up with a really tough conversation and not quite be sure how to drive it, because, like, if the only punishment we have for somebody is exiling them from society, then any decent person would draw a line for unacceptable behavior at a point which would exile most of society from society. And of course, you can't win an election that way. But that's not how the legal system works. That's not how the country works. And so, yeah, if that's how you're thinking about things, then we're going to have to make some type of compromises and say, oh, yeah, well, sure, this person is like, has a toxic workplace or says racist things, but we just kind of have to accept that. We can't ask them to change that because the only alternative is exiling them from society. And if we exiled every person who had ever said something racist or homophobic or whatever, then we wouldn't have a society anymore. And okay, that's, maybe you think of some other punishments, maybe you think of some other consequences for people, because you notice, actually, this is one thing that Trump does correctly, and I hesitate to say correctly because obviously it's all in service of something that's really awful, but Trump criticizes people all the time and they still vote for him. Why? Because he still asks for their vote. Like, he doesn't say, oh hey, if you're this kind of person, you shouldn't vote for me. He just says, I disagree with this person, obviously what they're doing is stupid. He's wrong about that most of the time, by the way. I'm not endorsing anything that Donald Trump says per se, but like, he just says, hey, I disagree with this, and also this person should still vote for me. So you're drawing this like really weird like distinction where you're saying, oh well, you know, if we criticize this behavior, then we're exiling somebody from our coalition. You know, no, you're not doing that. Like, I'm vegan, okay? And if I ran for office, I'm gonna want a lot of people who are not vegan to vote for me. I still think that being vegan is probably morally correct, but I'm not going to tell you, oh hey, if you're a meat eater, then you're not allowed to vote for me. Like Cory Booker, he's a vegan. He doesn't go around telling people, oh, you had meat for lunch? Don't you know that's torturing animals? Don't vote for me if you're going to do shit like that. He doesn't do that because that's obviously really stupid. Like, the whole framing is just so bizarre of, oh well, if we criticize someone, they won't vote for us. People criticize people who vote for them all the time. And most of the people who voted for Donald Trump were also at some point in time criticized by Donald Trump. That's not, the whole framing is just so bizarre. You don't need to go out and say racism is okay because we need to win the votes of racists. What you do is you run on a message that would be good for racists too. Like, yeah, okay, listen, we might not agree on the whole racism thing, but guess what? I'm running on a message that's going to make the economy way better for you and your neighbors and everybody else. And frankly, I'm not even asking your opinion about black people because I don't care. What I do care about is that we're actually passing something that's good for all of America. That's the framing. And having any other framing is just so odd and bizarre. Like, yeah, a ton of people who are in our coalition are going to do things that we disagree with, that we don't think are good. Who cares? Who cares? When we ask for their vote, we're not asking them to completely conform their lives in every way to everything that we believe. We're going to push for the stuff we believe in, and we're going to message on the stuff that is both popular and that we can sell well. Okay, so there's some stuff that we're going to push for that's not popular right now, but by talking about it every day, we're going to make it popular. This is exactly what Republicans did with trans rights, and it's so stupid the way the Democrats have responded to it, as if they just have to accept this. Like, no. Republicans had to push their message on trans people every single day in the media in order to make that a popular position. And what we have to do is we actually have a message that could be quite popular. In fact, it is quite popular. It's bodily autonomy. Do you really want big government coming in and telling you what you can and cannot do with your body? Where does that slippery slope end? That's the message. You don't even have to talk about trans people at all, frankly. All you have to do is say, I don't believe in big government telling you what to do. If the way that Republicans get their message out there is by shouting it every single day, that's how we're going to get our message out there too. It's not by compromising and instead changing our message to one that's less persuasive, less coherent, makes no sense, and will persuade no one, while basically acknowledging that we think Republicans are right. That's not persuasive. We're also not going to get there by talking all the time about the stuff that everybody hates about us. What we're going to do is we're going to just push a message of economic populism that's actually informed by economics that works, versus a message of economic populism which is creating huge problems in the economy, that's what Donald Trump is doing. And frankly, it's not even really a populist message because it's mostly about tax breaks for billionaires. So no, the question is not where do we draw the line, where can we compromise versus not compromise. The question is, where can we run a persuasive message? We don't care about where people disagree with us. Where people disagree with us, we're just going to drop the topic. We are never going to bring it up. And whenever somebody does bring it up, we bring it back to our messages that are popular and that are persuasive. That's all you got to do. This whole talk about where do we need to compromise with people, total bullshit. There are communists that are winning elections in like extremely conservative countries. Why? Just because they picked a message that was persuasive. Donald Trump, 80% of his policies are hugely unpopular, but he talks about the 20% that are, and he won. Can we just at least, we shouldn't copy anything else from Donald Trump because he's a terrible person, but can we at least copy the messaging? Because branding is Donald Trump's one only true skill. It is talking about the stuff that's popular and that he can message on. And everything else that he does can be super unpopular, and it doesn't matter because he just keeps talking about the 20% that is popular. He doesn't compromise, okay? He's extremely, extreme in every single one of his policy positions, but he just talks about the stuff that he knows that people will agree with. That's it. That's the messaging strategy. That's what we do every time. There's no stupid line about who gets to vote for us or who doesn't. There's no stupid line about people that we think should be exiled from society or not. There's, hey, listen, if I'm, in your family and I'm gay or whatever and you don't want to come to my wedding, that's offensive. I'm going to talk to you like that's offensive and I'm going to tell you why that's bad. And if you're not in my family and frankly I have no leverage over you on that issue, then I'm not going to talk about it at all probably. I might say from my perspective, I might post, a pride flag during Pride or something to show my support for people. But I'm not going to go to your house and try to persuade you because that's not my place, that's not my business, that's not going to work. When you have such unpopular opinions as I do, like for example that veganism is good, you have to learn that guess what, you're not going to persuade every single person to be a saint from day one. That's not how this works. What you do is you pick a message that everyone can agree with, you warn people about stuff that's true and that they can see happening before their own eyes, like the fact that AI billionaires want to take over the world and want to actually straight up enslave you and probably take your resources. In fact, they're already stealing your intellectual property as we speak. Pick some stuff that's economically populist and that actually is good policy too. Thread that needle of stuff that looks good at the outset and also looks good when people really examine it. And then you're good. And then you don't have to have all these stupid debates about who should we exile from society. Yes, Ezra Klein, you're right about that. We don't get to exile people from society. We don't get to pick where we draw the line. What we do get to do is we get to say how we interact with people and how we message our message. That's it. That's all we got to do. That's our job.